Good afternoon. This is Dr. Rich Bernardo coming to you from my alchemy studio with my friend the alchemist behind me, uh, working with various chemicals and so forth to turn lead into gold or coal into gold, depending on the stories that you read about alchemists. And in the alchemist case, it's pretty difficult, if not impossible, to transform, which is the key verb here, to transform lead into gold. Virtually impossible. I think they can do it now with some atomic colliders, but certainly my friend behind that failed at that premise. And yet, I, as author of the Alchemy, the Leadership Simulation, is claiming that we can turn ourselves into alchemists when we try to transform our stakeholders from X to Y. Kind of mean to say that your stakeholders and you are lead or coal, but it is nice to believe that the target would be to turn yourselves into gold. So we'll continue with that metaphor. And to continue with the idea of what this particular video is about, this video is aimed at two P's. One would be Peter the principal, and the other one would be Priscilla the politician. Both of them, one is on the educational leadership team, that would be the politician, obviously, and the other person will be the principal of ABC School. And in each case, they have separate roles, and the roles would be obviously to be a principal or to be a politician. But if you recall from the videos about your given roles, that's the role that you play, and it's partially the role that you take. The other part of the role that you need to take is to take the role of the specialty. A specialty in terms of theory or practices, if you want to use that premise, but we'll go. It doesn't matter which one we're going to use. I'll stick with theory. A specialty that you need to not only take as for how you intend to work with your colleagues in either of the two teams, but also to take in terms of impressing your skill set on others so that they too can soak up some of the ideas that you have from the perspective that you're going to display to them. Critical point. And in your case, since both of you are going to be collaborative leadership specialists, all that more important. So if you are the principal, not every principal believes in collaborative leadership, but we know. And in this case, you need to take that role on as that you do believe in collaborative leadership, that you have the more nearly you're able to empower others to take on leadership aspects of operating your school and your district, the more nearly everyone is strengthened by that. Insofar as a politician is concerned, notwithstanding some of the nonsense we see playing out in Washington, D.C. in 2020, your job is to seek collaboration as best you can. As more nearly you can cement, I'll go with the word coalitions, but that's probably too strong a term. You can get other people to work with you and to share ideas and to recognize the power of each other's ideas so that you can eventually coalesce them into a set of ideas or actions that will transform your school district. It's your job to help other people become collaborative. I stopped there for a minute on purpose because sometimes people say, well, aren't we always collaborative? And the research does not show that, believe it or not. The old adage that I think it's a Japanese saying, that none of us is as smart as all of us. There is some argument about where that quote came from. I'll give it to the Japanese for the moment. That none of us is as smart as all of us sounds very cute, but it's not really all that true all the time, especially in school systems. Believe it or not, everybody's got master's degrees plus, so everyone thinks they have the right to do all the I thinks that they want until everyone's buried by the I thinks. And no one's listening to what the message behind the music of the I thinks may or may not be. And so it becomes a Tower of Babel, if you remember your Bible stories. And that Tower of Babel, as you know, collapsed. And so it's your job to keep the tower erect. It's your job to practice the spirit of collaboration, if not some of the skills that go with it. And all the more reasons for you to be aware of that. So I'm going to speak to it in a kind of overview in the remaining part of this video, but then following from that, I will be Also offering some links that you may want to take a look at, and I actually very much encourage you to do that. It's not as though whatever you get from the links you can directly, specifically apply in a given instance to how your conversations with your colleagues will work out. But the spirit behind it, the messages behind it, will hopefully permeate, infuse, enliven a sense of empowerment among everyone, so that they can be open to other ideas, and can use good facts to substantiate where they want to take their group in order to transform the ABC school district from the point of view of how the model was described to you in our story about Old Norman as such. So let me give you something of an overview that goes with that, and then we'll revisit this again in terms of some things you need to review up the road. Again, to remind you that the statement that none of us is as smart as all of us sounds very cute, or the other one, that two heads are better than one. Both sound very appealing, except they're not particularly true all the time, because sometimes we can be not very smart together, to be charitable. And I can think of some jury decisions and some elections. And you probably can think of lots of times when you were forced to endure some committee work where people were not particularly smart together, where they were in fact more interested in having themselves get heard rather than to hear what other folks were trying to contribute. And you understand that. That's why you're a principal, at least in our district, or that's why you're a politician who's been elected several times, to keep your community, help your community be what it is able to be. And really what you need to be is a master at dialogue. Now, the dialogue word comes from systems thinking, learning disciplines issues out of Peter Senge, but we're going to use it, in your case, more specifically, and break it down into its Greek roots. Dios means two, TWO in Greek, and logos means speak, to speak, two people speaking so that they're hearing each other. If you're familiar with Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he talks about reflective listening, and the same premise would apply there. The other issue is communication, which clearly is something that you're going to need to help clarify. That's going to be your role as much as anything else. And also the disposition of being open to other people and valuing other folks' input. Really critical to what this is about. And so you're going to work hard to establish trust. Trust, after all, being the very basis for any effective group, whether it's the Boy Scouts, two kids playing baseball in the street, a church group, your family, all must start with trust relationships. And you need to do the best you can to not only nurture it, but also point out trust issues, both positives and negatives, as you see them emerge along the way of the simulation. And at the same time, you also need to encourage inquiring spirits. So you might be the person to say, I need to understand that a little bit more clearly. Do I understand you to say XYZ, XYZ? So people can have a chance to be sure that what they're saying is understood, and that you're valuing what they're trying to say as well. This is no easy task. It's something you need to work on. And I'm going to get existential with you for a minute and say, what you're really trying to shape is a common sense of reality. It's an old Western based on a Japanese story, which I can't remember right now, but the old Western was called The Magnificent Seven. It goes way back before any of you were born, where the story recounts a version of a killing in a Western town from 7 perspectives. And none of them are necessarily true. The short story is that they needed to somehow put them together to come to a common sense of reality. And how often is it when a group is trying to make sense of the issues before them, where the people apply their view of reality and don't necessarily try to meld that reality with other folks' perspectives as well. No easy task, and we'll give you some other pointers to help make that better. So you have at least 2 roles in the team. On the one hand, your perspective is to shape a purpose and begin to target what we call probable futures. And just as importantly, your expertise in encouraging a positive, respectful exchange of viewpoints and respect for opinions, substantiated by data. Too often you get too many I thinks, and the I thinks clearly are not based on facts so much as what people think that they thought that they heard or feel that they want to see happen. And keep that in mind as you go a long way towards making your team work, here's the key word, cohesively to reinvent your emerging future.